because I don't want to go backwards. I want to keep going forward. Together, that's exactly where we're going to go. God bless.
I'm Steve Walders.
And I'm J.R. Ross.
This is Rewind, Wisconsinized summary of this week on the Capitol. Oops, I got that wrong. It's this week's inaction. No action in the Capitol, right, J.R.?
Yeah.
We're looking at the third week that Joint Finance has not met.
I've never seen that before.
Well, I haven't either. And the biggest hang-up now, we talked about 4 issues last week. Let's not go through those, because is the biggest hang-up transportation funding right now? Is that the linchpin issue?
It's not necessarily the funding, it's the zoo, it seems like, because you have this, they seem to be kind of coalescing around a number of $500 million in bonding. So the governor wanted $1.3 billion, and they made clear they want to pare that back. So 500 seems to be the number for now. I mean, it could change.
Yeah.
But that's the number. The question is, how's the pain felt? And you get this. We've heard for a couple of weeks Republicans saying, especially in the Assembly, it should be felt out, in southeastern Wisconsin as well as outstate.
Equally.
Yes, and the zoo is the big issue because the zoo sucks up a lot of money. It is the biggest interchange we have in Wisconsin in terms of commerce.
Yeah.
I think that 3/4 of all of our commerce goes through that interchange every day.
Right.
So southeastern Wisconsin Republicans are saying, okay, we can't delay this. One, it's in the middle of the rebuild. I mean, the place looks like...
it's a little beyond that. It's on schedule to be finished by 2017.
2018.
2018? Okay.
Last few things of 2018.
All right.
But it's in the middle of this kind of rebuild. It would be, I think Fitzgerald told us this week, you'd literally have bridges hanging in the air if you stopped right now in certain parts or delayed parts of this project.
Yeah.
So they're saying you can't do that. Well, Outstate says, look, you guys keep saying we can't delay the zoo, but that means we get, the short end of the stick again outstate, and our projects get starved. And oh, by the way, you have the zoo, you have 94 north-south, 94 east-west. Some of you want 894 rebuilt. That is like a 20-year build-out in southeastern Wisconsin of the same thing over and over. If we have no more revenue, we're still going to be cutting projects outstate to feed your beast, essentially.
Well, it was intriguing because the WisPolitics, here's an attaboy. Your report on Thursday, Darling said that Assembly leaders want to, in essence, hold the zoo interchange kind of hostage, right? And then breaking the Ronald Reagan's amendment, speak no evil of a fellow Republican. I was surprised. We got a formal statement from the Speaker, Speaker Voss, and Finance Co-Chair John Nygren, saying, Alberta, take it back, walk it back.
Yes.
And then Alberta said, I'm not going to take it back. So that's unusual. First of all, it's unusual for Joint Finance not to meet for 3 weeks to kind of dance around. Secondly, you have this public statements. That's also unusual. Republicans criticizing each other.
I've seen disagreements on policy before. I've never seen 2 co-chairs going at it in press releases over like motivation and your statements, like walk this back. No, I'm not.
Disingenuous.
That's unusual.
Yeah.
And there's, some Republicans were kind of incensed by her comments because they're saying, look, we said more than a week ago fees are off the table. We never wanted a gas tax increase. And oh, by the way, as an aside, at least 4 of Alberta's members on the committee have said to me we would do a gas tax increase if it was an option.
But the governor's taking it off the table.
So they're saying we took that off the table a while ago, so we're not looking for a fee hike right now. We want to, spread the pain equally. Their argument is we're trying to actually work with you and try and protect the zoo a little bit, but we shouldn't have it just be about us out here.
The public break between the Assembly Speaker Voss and Nygren and Senator Darling, will this impede, and if so, to what extent, finally finding a compromise in the 4th week of the impasse or gridlock or deadlock?
John Nygren said this week it doesn't help. I mean, I don't see how it could. If they can't get along on something like this, how do you get it done? It's a great question because now it's transportation and the bucks are the 2 big things hanging this up right now, right?
Yep.
Prevailing wage is this other issue and the tax package.
Tax code.
But it's all about...
Coing is now off the idea of abolishing the alternative minimum tax.
Is it bucks in or out? Is it transportation, zoo, or outstate? Where's that mix going to be?
Right.
And I don't get the sense that they're any closer to having a decision on that. Somehow they have to be an impasse or a kind of a moment of clarity, if you will, that they come together. Or do they take those things out and come back later on? Fitzgerald a couple weeks ago said, I was here in the mid-'90s when we took the transportation budget out and passed it in
November. I looked it up.
It was not
yesterday.
good.
Yeah, it was
And
the second transportation budget passed in November.
look at the 3 weeks we've had finances been off. Has it gotten better? From May 29th to today, can you say things have gotten better?
Yes.
Or gotten worse? I'd say they've gotten worse.
Okay, before we talk about the bucks, I went to the Legislative Fiscal Bureau and I asked them, give me the past bonding numbers, because the governor wants the bond for transportation as 1.3. These are interesting numbers, JR. The current, what we're borrowing or bonding now, 991 million, but the 1.3 is what Democrats, you remember when Governor Doyle and Democrats, they ran the Senate and the Assembly? That is the number that they authorized in the 2009 and 11. So I don't think the governor is a very astute politician. I just don't think he pulled the 1.3 out of the air.
No. And he also will tell you over and over again that because of other decisions he made, i.e. no building project additions, the bonding level overall is lower in this budget than it has been the past decade, I think is what he's been saying.
Yes.
That, here's the problem, though. The 1.3, it's a cumulative effect of 1.3, 991, and 1.3. Again, 22 cents on every dollar.
Then beyond that, 590, and beyond that, 716 in 2005-07.
16-17, 22.3 cents of every dollar go just toward paying off the debt.
Yes.
Think of your own credit card.
Yep.
Could you have a credit card payment of 22% of your income every month? I couldn't do it.
Not sustainable.
Not to have my house.
That's right.
Or my
That's
wife
right.
and kids.
Now let's talk about the bucks. You know what I find intriguing? 2 weeks ago yesterday, there was this big press conference. The governor, County Executive Abele, Milwaukee Mayor Barrett, there was hosannas, palm branches. This is a 2 weeks later. Nobody has seen the draft. Nobody can go through the details. So yes, you have support among the City of Milwaukee Dem legis for it. But they also said yesterday, we'd sure like to know what exactly is in it.
Oh, they said we're not going to vote for something unless we're part of the process too. That was the implicit message of that, right?
Yeah.
You want our support? We need to be included, and that's an issue for them. This whole idea of pulling it out of the budget requires Democratic support. How do you get Democrats to support it? You, A, get them involved in the discussions, and B, they're going to want other things. Well, you want our votes in the bucks? We want A, B, and C. What would A, B, and C be?
Well, we're talking about Milwaukee Democrats. Those 3 senators that wrote the letter yesterday saying, let us in on the details and the talks. Nakia Harris Dodd and Chris Larson and Senator Lena Taylor. Why wasn't Tim Carpenter's name on that letter?
Good question. So he's been talking about how leadership is twisting arms at this point about the Bucks Arena. It's again, this is kind of an issue of they know if they pull this current package out of the budget, it will not pass as is.
It will not pass as a standalone bill.
Question though is, do they have to go back and renegotiate it? Can they tweak it?
Yeah.
Now I asked Fitzgerald this week why no draft yet. He said we're still negotiating things. Wow. Well, what?
Thought you had a deal. Excuse me.
Those 4 things are the big issues, the big revenue issues, if you will. The city's contribution, county,
47.
state, center district. Those are all negotiated. That's part of the agreement.
Right.
But there are all kinds of small discussions going on, from what he described it as, to get something done.
Well, but let's look at the Marquette Law School poll in April. You remember the statewide numbers on that? 79% against. But that was phrased, should state aid of $150 million be used to help build the Bucks Arena. So Walker opened the bidding with $220 in February. Then the law school poll says $150, 79 to 17 against. Wisconsin we asked our own questions. Now, JR, this is not scientific.
Sure.
This is random. People could vote as often as they want, but some interesting numbers. Let's just focus on those issues that got more than 100 votes. 382 said no, state money should not be part of the funding. 403 said yes, the arena is important to the state's economy. 338 said no, the owners of the Bucks should contribute more. 469, the top vote getter in our unscientific, random, let's just have fun poll. No, not when they are making cuts to other needs of the state. This speaks to, well, I'm on the record, this is the most radioactive issue in the budget. Agree?
Probably. It's interesting. I talked to a Republican this week who said, if you give me 5 minutes and an open mind, I can explain the Bucks Arena why we should do this. But I don't have that with everybody in my district. So how do you get this thing across?
Yeah.
And that's a danger.
But some Republicans outstate, if they get their own provisions in the budget, If Mary Chaya gets the scaled back compromise teacher certification rules, if Representative Kathy Bernier holds on her exemption from the plumbing and building codes for the Amish, they might still vote for that. A budget with the Bucks Arena.
You know, possible. It always comes down to what can you put in it to make it palatable for the other stuff. That's the question. Now, like Rob Coles, for example, he's got his issues. You're looking at the Senate. That's really the place you want to look because you've got Nass and Strobel saying basically their nose right now.
We're off the reservation.
Strobel's caveat is unless there is meaningful prevailing wage reform that includes an exemption for locals.
Yep.
Now, they don't have votes for that right now. Fitzgerald said this week, I don't have votes for anything prevailing wage. So count him as a no right now. That means you have 17 possible yeses.
Can't lose any more.
So if you're a Rob Coles, what do you have to make? And Rob has said, I don't want to budget with the Bucks, and I can't support the Bucks deal. But can you find something else to make him, not to pick on Rob, but it's the same thing for everybody. Frank Lassay. Frank Lassay's expressed concerns about this deal. Can you find something else that makes, I'm not saying like you buy them off, but you address their concerns in the budget to make them go, okay, I don't like this part, but I can accept it because of A, B, and C that I can sell back home.
What you just said is the toughest house is by far and away going to be the state Senate, correct?
Yes, but what's interesting is the assumption has been for weeks the Assembly is fine on the Bucks deal. I talked to a couple members of the Assembly go, you know, nobody's really polled us about this. I'm not sure that we got all the numbers they think they do on this Bucks deal. So I think that assumption may be a little bit badly based right now.
How aggressively is Speaker Voss asking his members to consider a budget with a Bucks deal in it? Is he working it hard?
Good question. So I don't know that he's counting votes yet. And Fitzgerald is doing I call it the slow jam, if you will, where he takes his members, and this is what's happened the last budget. He lets his members air out their grievances, finds out what they need, what are their issues, and tries to work it so that they get to a point where they're okay to say yes. So that's kind of how Fitz has to operate because of the way his caucus is set up.
Yep.
He has no margin for error, especially when you get people saying publicly no, even saying no after Fitz said, please don't say anything more publicly.
Yes.
It doesn't make it any easier.
What did Senator Fitzgerald say? It's not helpful.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Meanwhile, let's talk timeline. Senator Darling told the Journal-Sentinel this week she's very concerned that we won't solve this budget impasse until mid-July. Does that infringe on the governor's plans or hopes to announce for president on July 13th, J.R.?
It could. Now, I just saw a short story this morning that Governor Walker's been ripping last night and told people that, well, the fiscal year ends June 30th. That's when the budget is over.
Oh.
So I don't know. I mean, you know, Governor Walker has a way.
So now we're parsing words.
Possibly. I wasn't there. I didn't hear him exactly. I've read the summary of it, but so maybe there's creating a little wiggle room, if you will. Who knows? They could still have it done by July 13th. There's still plenty of room. If, in theory, if they pass the bill out of finance next week, they could be on the floor the week after and do it and knock it out. Governor Walker sign it by July 4th weekend. In theory. Now, after this week, do I think they're going to have an agreement Monday, Tuesday?
Right.
Very tough. Unless somebody says, okay, we're going to give on this. It's tough to see how they're going to deal in the next couple of days. Still
in the, as Nygren said, the stare-down phase. By the way, thanks again to the Fiscal Bureau. This is a piece of trivia. 10 times since the 1977-79 budget, they have gone beyond the July 1 cutoff, which is not really harmful because if you don't have a budget, state government continues to operate. It's not the federal model of shutdown.
And all you do if you're an agency is that if you're taking a hit in the next budget, you just pull back on your spending because you can do that.
Yeah.
You don't have to spend up to your limit, if you will.
Yeah.
So it's manageable, but it does it's bad PR, if you will.
We will talk about the governor for president campaign later, but prediction, where does he announce? Tulsa, Plainfield, Iowa, where he was born, first in the nation caucuses, Delavan, where he was a Boy Scout leader, where?
I bet you he will not. I'll just say this. I doubt it'll be in Madison.
That's the safest answer, although I can't give you any better answer. Meanwhile, JR, we got some numbers that said from the Bureau of Labor Standards that took a real concrete look at the number of jobs created. 2011, when the governor took office, and the end of his first term, 2014, Wisconsin ranked 35th, according to the BLS. Some of the other stats, the U.S. gain in private sector jobs, nationally. 9.3%. Wisconsin's gain 5.7%. Smallest gain among our Midwest neighbors. But here, let's go back to what the governor said. 2010, we've talked about it. I'm going to create 250,000 private sector jobs. Now the scoring, according to BLS, federal agency, 129,154. Missed it by 49%. And just yesterday, our monthly unemployment rate rose slightly to 4.6%. Does this trip him up on the campaign trail?
Well, Governor Walker's answer has been for a while on the jobs promises. We went bold. I believe in bold promises and going for it. So we went bold with our promise. He's not, he's not said, yes, I made a mistake. But that's his new explanation about this. With unemployment rate's interesting is he's been talking in the campaign trail about how not only is our rate down almost half of what it was when he took office, but our participation rate in Wisconsin is higher than the national level. So it's only a little bit of a kind of a knock, if you will, in that argument of, well, we're doing better. I mean, we're still well below the national average for unemployment rate, but it's not helpful for it to be going up. And the job growth, I mean, if you're Governor Walker and you're going to go toe-to-toe with Governor Perry, for example, about job creation, Rick Perry is going, look,
excuse me.
Yeah, we're doing much better.
You're in the dust here.
And the Donald this week.
And the Donald talking about Wisconsin. Go ahead.
Getting the shots about how Walker's got big problems in the state.
Wisconsin has serious problems. Go ahead.
So I mean, he's a wild card in all of this. What's he going to say?
Well, a footnote: he's a billionaire wild card.
Yes.
He stood up there and said, "What is he worth? $8.3 million." Go ahead.
Governor Walker.
I'm interrupting you.
I'm sure Governor Walker will find a way to massage the numbers to still point out that things have gotten better since he took office. Now they haven't met the goal of the jobs growth, but things have gotten better, and he will talk about those things instead of, oh, by the way, I fell 121,000 jobs short of my promise, that kind of thing.
Right. Okay, let's turn to a different corner. The governor has been, for want of a better term, engaged in he's been taking the class called Diplomacy 101. 101, okay? Because he's new, he hasn't done much international traveling. This latest kerfuffle. So he goes, he met with English Prime Minister Cameron, and then he goes to a Utah fundraiser and said that Prime Minister Cameron, in their discussion, faulted President Obama on international affairs, prompting a Mr. Cameron press person to say, and no, he didn't. And then now the governor says, I won't publicly discuss talks with international leaders in the future. Is he not doing very well in Diplomacy 101, Professor Ross?
A long time ago not to kiss and tell.
Okay.
So, now, if Cameron did say that in a meeting, would you want somebody going out and blabbing about that? No.
No.
So, and he's obviously saying that didn't happen. So it's not, again, it's kind of like this, the learning process for Governor Walker in national affairs.
Yes.
So give him credit. He's out there every day, it seems like, getting briefed on foreign affairs to bone up, if you will.
He expects to be asked about these national and international issues. Go ahead.
Things like this don't help the perception of if he's prepared for a national stage in terms of discussing national issues or having the gravitas to be in the same room as international leaders.
Right. But, okay, here's something I don't understand. Numerous news stories. He formed a Testing the Waters Committee. Help me understand that, man.
So he's been
raising Our American Revival.
Raising unlimited money. Those promote ideas. Now we have the Testing the Waters Committee to promote the possibility of his campaign. Then we create the committee to actually run as a campaign. So
what does the Testing the Waters get you? Now,
it just changes. The money now is raised differently. It's controlled differently. It's just a different legal filing. I mean, nothing what Governor Walker is doing is going to change between what happened pre this week and post this week. He's not going to travel less. He's not going to talk differently. Well, he can now say he's exploring. Before he had to say, well, if we decided, run for president. So now we can talk a little bit more differently. But beyond that, there's no real change. I mean, the biggest shock in my career covering politics would be if Governor Walker says, I'm not running for president. I would say that.
Not going to happen. And meanwhile, the Donald gets in and Jeb Bush firmly gets in, and we're up to 12. Yeah. And we haven't got the Jindals and the Christies and the Walker. Anybody else I'm missing?
Kasich.
John Kasich. Politico said today he's trying to find a way to be a moderate in this thing.
What's interesting is Governor Walker, a public policy polling national firm, Democratic firm, so take it with a grain of salt, but their national polling for Republicans has been saying that Governor Walker continues to lead the national field, if you will. Now it's fairly bunched, is in the mid-teens, but He does best with those who consider themselves very conservative voters. Guess who dominates in Republican primaries? Very conservative voters. So
Yes.
that's a good sign for Governor Walker.
Right.
If that holds. And how does this play out? It's June, 6 months away, 7 months away from the first caucus in Iowa. People could fall to the wayside between now and then. Now, it's not the straw poll anymore to knock people out like what happened with Tommy Thompson in 2007.
Yes.
But other things could happen that people would change their minds or drop out. So there's still some time for the field to form, but he's got a niche right now that he's doing well with.
He remains a top tier poll in
Absolutely.
all the polls.
Absolutely.
Okay, WisPolitics stock report rising.
GOP tensions.
GOP tensions.
When's the last time you remember co-chairs of finance exchanging blows and letters or statements in the middle of the finance process?
JR, it doesn't happen.
When's the last time you remember a co-chair of finance calling out a member of finance for blasting a deal pending before finance, a la Nygren and Knudsen? That happened this week, where I talked to John Nygren about Knudsen's comments, which it's rare to have a finance member come out and say we should not do this
Right.
when it's still pending.
And the issue is the Bucks deal.
Yep, the Bucks deal.
Knudsen is adamant against the Bucks deal.
No state money should be used.
And he's got a key voice on joint finance.
And Nygren, what point that he made is that the Assembly GOP has almost always had this rule of thumb of when we make a decision together, we come out united. They will bicker behind closed doors all they want.
Right.
But once the decision's made, they are a pretty unified front. That goes back, before I got up here. That's been that way. This is kind of unusual to see that happen. Now then add in the tension between Governor Walker and lawmakers, which has been going on for months now, where they feel like his budget's put them in a bad position. He's saying no fee increase because it's a tax hike. They're going, wait a second, what is that all about? It's just, they are in charge. They are supposed to be able to govern, and they are not being able to govern right now in this kind of impasse on transportation and the Bucks. It looks dysfunctional.
And just a footnote on your rising, which I agree with. Speaker Vos and Nygren picking on Darling is going to have the effect of other Senate Republicans rallying around Senator Darling.
Yeah, and what's interesting on the Marquette is it's not really a caucus versus caucus position. It really is a regional thing where you have
zoo.
You have senators from out state saying, I don't like this idea of protecting the zoo either. It is really kind of there's always tension in the budget. It's always an ugly sausage-making process. This is kind of a unique thing in the 15 years I've been covering finance.
Yeah.
What's going on?
It is. Okay, mixed? Ron Kind?
Ron Kind. When the last pro-trade Dems left in the
Yes,
House,
yes.
he has been sticking with the president on trade. He's playing a key role. in
Sticking
these
with Paul
discussions.
Ryan? How unique is that? President Obama, Paul Ryan, Ron Kind, all support this trade deal.
He's sticking with them. He is a pro-trade Democrat. He believes in opening up trade because it's good for the district, good for these various things, agricultural, that kind of stuff. That's, so good for him. He's a player on the national stage. The issue is Ron Kind has long thought about running for governor,
U.S. Senate.
Yes. on down the line, a statewide
Yes.
race. The party in Wisconsin right now is not a pro-trade party, a pro-free trade party, I should say. So if Ron Kind wants to run, let's say governor in 2018, this creates an issue for him in a primary where folks are going to say, wait a second, we're not with you on this issue. This is a big hang-up, especially labor. Granted, labor's powers have been kind of waned the last few years. But let's be honest, AFSCME, they backed Martha Lanning for party chair and helped her for state party chair.
Yep.
It creates an issue for Ron Kind if he wants to run statewide someday.
Do you think this is the reason that Kind wasn't at the Dem State Convention? That
There
you
was
and I
some
were
chatter
there?
about that maybe he didn't want to deal with any blowback about trade. And then you have, by the way, Mark Pocan whipping votes against these deals. Tammy
Against his
Baldwin
president.
saying she opposes it, and Russ Feingold running part of his campaign against trade deals. So, I mean, he's kind of a lone wolf, if you right now, on trade in the Democratic Party.
And speaking of Feingold, you've got him what? As the falling?
Here's the thing. Russ Feingold built his reputation as being against big money in politics, right? These stories this week questioning his PAC spending are not helping that image. And here's the thing. Ron Johnson has a narrow path to be able to victory in Wisconsin next year because it's going to be a much higher Democratic turnout than 2010. He has not done a good job of connecting with people since he got elected. Moderate voters, I should say. Is not well known.
Right.
Numbers aren't very great. But what he could do, the path for Johnson is to make Feingold the incumbent in some way. He's a creature of Washington. He was there for 18 years. I'm still even though I'm the incumbent, I'm the outsider. and then use this story or things like this to paint Feingold as a hypocrite. That's a path to victory for him. Now, I'm not saying it's going to work, but this stuff doesn't help Feingold when it comes to reintroducing himself to the public and saying, okay, I'm ready to go and fight for you again. It just doesn't help.
When I read that Journal Sentinel story on spending by his group, Progressive United. Okay, I wanted to know how much they had paid Feingold over that period. It wasn't a whole lot of money. I think $77,000.
Yeah.
I just found that intriguing. So you've got Feingold as fall.
And here's the thing: Feingold's backers will tell you that Progressive United is different from PACs. We think of PACs as basically only a conduit, takes in money and doles it out to favored candidates. What Feingold's backers will tell you is that's not how Progressive United was set up. It's set up to its strength is the email list. It has all these people who support it.
Yep.
They then say, okay, we think you should support candidate X. And then they go out and give money to that candidate X on their own. Or we want to rally against issue Y. They get everybody hyped up and they go make calls or send emails to lawmakers. That to them is what that PAC is about. But that's an explanation. It takes too long for the uneducated voter versus he's spending money. He's not spending money on what he should be spending money on.
Right.
It's an easier message.
So
for
what you're
critics,
saying
if
is
you
the
will.
Johnson campaign hung a pretty effective message early on, immediately after Feingold announced.
Yeah. No, it's June of the year before.
Yes.
There's a lot of time between now and then, but it's not
Okay.
not helpful, if you will.
Hey, just a few minutes ago, Court of Appeals Judge Joanne Klappenberg announced that she will run again for the Supreme Court.
Yes.
And the backstory there is she ran against Justice Prosser in 2011. It took a statewide recount to decide that Prosser won by a few votes. So, but here's my question. Does Klappenberg announcing today, is that a strong signal that incumbent Justice Pat Crooks will not seek re-election?
Well, Crooks has been saying for the last couple of months that I'm not making a decision until the fall. Now, we all have assumed for a while that he will not seek re-election. He turned 77 in May.
Right.
He's been in the court for 20 years. Yet this is going to be it. But he's saying I'm holding out. The question for Crooks is who's going to support him? You know, he's not a liberal. He's not a conservative. So the people who run campaigns from those wings of the party,
Yes.
they're not there for him. The interest groups, do you see WMC helping Pat Crooks if he runs again?
I don't think so.
But then again, if you
Well,
are...
they're not, but also, we can also say they're not going to help Joanne Klappenberg.
No, but if you are a group on the left, Greater Wisconsin, do you see Greater Wisconsin helping a Pat Crooks? No, he's not a... He is a swing vote at times.
Yes.
So he's a man without a party, if you will. When it comes to running a statewide election, that's not a great place to be.
Okay.
So I think the perception in Madison is he will not seek re-election. Now, he still could, but if he does, it's going to be a tough race for him. Kloppenberg's announced. Rebecca Bradley's elevated to the appeals court by Walker like a month ago now.
Is that the name that you hear?
They've been talking about her for a while. Remember, she turned down a race in 2015
Yes.
against Bradley, so her name's been mentioned. There are others who will pop up. Mark Gundrum is an appeals court judge in the 2nd District. His name is going to be floated out there. I mean, there are lots of folks who kick the tires in an open race. You know, that's for sure. But
The first one in is Joanne Klappenberg,
Yes.
in which we all remember from 2011, that unprecedented recount that took weeks to resolve.
the good thing for her now is she's actually been a judge. Remember
Yes.
when she ran in 11? It became a proxy fight over Act 11, so that's changed the dynamic of that race quite a bit. But she didn't have the black robes, and that is a prerequisite to run for Supreme Court anymore. Unless you have the black robe, you just aren't a valid candidate in the public's eye because they see it as a step up. You know, they don't want you to be a lawyer walking in to be a Supreme Court justice.
Right. Okay. Well, that's Rewind for this week. Hey, you're going to be on vacation. Have a great family vacation.
In theory, I'm on vacation next week.
It'll be impossible to find a equally engaging co-host, but we will try.
Good luck.
I'm Steve Walders.
And I'm J.R. Ross.